Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Emily, and I'll be co-hosting along with Giulia today. And we are doing a panel on vibe coding. And I'm so excited about this because it's been such a hot topic. And I think there are different levels of knowledge. And I'm just so curious to see how everyone approaches it. And I feel like there are so many different approaches. So I'm curious to get all your perspectives. So let's do a quick round of introductions and then we'll get into it. Maaike, do you want to start?
Sure. Thank you so much, Emily, for having me. My name is Maaike Groenewege. I'm a conversation designer turned prompt engineer by accident with my own company, Convers. And I design chatbot conversational interfaces and increasingly also things like workflow apps and anything you can vibe code, I guess. So yeah, very happy to be here.
Thanks for joining. Erika?
Well, hello. My name is Erika, and I guess you could say that I am now a essayist and amateur software developer. And I am looking at this as a kind of a new avenue into computer science and engineering as the beginning of something that is at the start of an evolutionary path. And so I don't really know what to call it or call myself or where I even fit into tech or design any longer. So I'm just interested to randomly say things and see how people respond.
Jeff, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Jeff Blankenburg. I think there's a lot of conversational AI folks here. I was actually the chief evangelist at Alexa for 7 years. So I've spent a lot of time thinking about, having conversations with computers. But as AI has emerged, I left Amazon to pursue some other things. But I find myself doing a ton of vibe coding, not only in my personal life, but also as part of my current employment. And so it's really interesting to have come maybe from the exact opposite side that Erika has, where I've been a professional software developer for 20 years, and this has completely changed how I think about approaching software development too.
Can't wait to hear more. Anne, you want to go?
Sure. I'll try and be quick. I'm going to say I started as graphic designer, web designer, UX designer, conversational AI designer. Now I consider myself somewhat of an agentic developer, and I'm calling myself a consultant, but I really just try and help people through this whole thing that we're all going through right now with the experience that I have behind me. So it's interesting times people keep saying it's interesting times, and it sure is.
Definitely is.
Yeah. So I think, why don't we start off with just defining what vibe coding means to you? And I know, vibe coding is just a broad term, but I'm curious to hear your perspective on how you think about it. Does anyone want to jump in first?
Sure, I can go.
Yeah, go for it.
So, I mean, vibe coding kind of got that slanderous, like irresponsible kind of tag on it. And I don't necessarily think about it as vibe coding. It's not like, hey, let's just wing it and see what happens. I think that, you have to enter with a plan. You have to have some idea of what it is you want to build. Now, whether you have the technical know-how or background about how a database works or what an API is, I don't know that that's always necessary. But I've really started to shift my focus around vibe coding around what I call like behavior-driven development. Does the browser, does the app do what I expected it to do? Well, then it works. Now, there are levels to that, of course, especially as you start talking about big enterprise data or things that need more security. But for a simple app that you're building for like a community group or something like that, most of the time that's plenty. So vibe coding to me is making sure that it does what it's supposed to do and continuing to ask until it does.
That's funny.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely love that. And it's so funny because I feel the same. I mean, there's not a lot of vibing about the coding that I do. Also, there's not a lot of coding that I do. So I really thought really hard and long about this question. And I guess that for me, coming from a non-coding background, this is more structured authoring. And that's what I've been doing for years already. It's like thinking of a plan, putting it into words in my case in such a way that the specifications become codable, I guess. So I do find myself writing a lot of structured content that goes into Claude Code in my case, and it gives me beautiful end results that happen to be working software somehow, magically.
It is magic.
Anne, did you have?
I just feel like there's a difference between vibe coding and AI assisted development. I feel like vibe coding is sort of what you do in Lovable, where AI assisted development is more structured, like everybody said. I start with a PRD and an ADR, and I just think that's different from saying, make me an interface that looks like whatever, you know. So I just think they're two different things to a degree, and I think it's just important to call that out, but that's just my 2 cents. But I'd love to hear what everybody else thinks on that piece.
Erika, do you have any thoughts there?
I held off on vibe coding and agent-driven development for a while because I have a technical background that is not common in design, even though I worked as a designer and like UX person. I understand implicitly the whole stack to like whatever degree, and that's just me. That has nothing to do with being a designer. All my friends and like friends when I was young and in my career have been engineers. I mean, like I have engineers that worked, friends that have worked on like Amazon's entire like inbound order taking system in like the early 2000s, and I have friends that work on like back-end tooling and like schema design for like Apple and the iTunes ecosystem. And so I have, you know, I don't know how to do it with my hands, but I did with my brain. And so I spent all my time as a designer working with engineers who would sit here and talk about Smalltalk and Lisp and Alan Kay, and like they're writing their own dialects and they're like, hey, help me make a thing for the front end. And so my gap was always like, well, I know what I wanted to do. I don't know how to do it. And so now I started with vibe coding and did that for like one day. I was like, okay, I get that. That's worthless. And so it kept on going deeper and deeper and deeper to where now I'm doing things at kind of, let's call it like an amateur enthusiast level. But the things I'm doing are like computer science and software engineering, all the way down to like writing the plans for API endpoints and doing like migrations from like one service to another and like creating vector databases and then like running, like using the OpenAI API to do like semantic embeddings in my database to create like multi-layer retrieval systems. And suddenly I can take all these years of just absorbing computer science, being stuck making PNGs in Fireworks and just ditch all that behind. And so now I'm like vibe coding, I get what it is and there's nothing wrong with it. But I'm looking at my main project. I'm trying to build a real product, right? All AI driven. My main repository, I've got 530 commits and I read every single one of them. And I read every single plan and the agent presents back, and I read every single diff and I read all the deletions and all the additions. And when there's a bug or when something's wrong, I say, explain this to me in exceedingly excruciating detail. And so in the last few months, I was already pretty smart with computer science. I just didn't know how to do it. I've now taught myself everything it's doing. And so an agent never does anything that I don't learn. And I'm never going to type it. Like nobody's going to type it again. And even Boris Cherny, the developer of Claude Code, like last week said, he just says, don't output all the code. Just tell me when you're done and give me the standup. Because even he doesn't care what the code is being written. But knowing what it was doing and knowing the difference between like a temporal database like Datomic versus like Postgres versus whatever, that is where I think is going to separate people from vibe coding stuff that's AI slop that just breaks, you don't have to fix a bug, to building scalable enterprise grade software with agents that levels the playing field, because you might not know what to do, but Claude does. And if you know how to ask Claude what to do, and if you know what semantic embedding means, and if you know what turning words into numbers to look at relationships between like, being able to run searches and draw inferences behind the scenes, then to the user it just feels like magic. And then you can do anything that anyone can do, because the can do of knowing what to type with your fingers, that's gone. That doesn't matter. No one has to know that. You just have to know, kind of what Jeff was saying, like behavioral driven design. for the user's behavior, yes, but also the agent's behavior. And then with those two things, you're limitless. And the playing field is for the first time, like in history of all humanity, leveled.
I couldn't agree with you more. I came from a marketing background as a software developer, so I was building a lot of e-commerce websites and just .com stuff for folks like Abercrombie and Fitch and whoever else. And Erika, one of the things that I've been saying since this technology really became commonly available is that all of the designers that I've ever worked with in my whole life, all of a sudden they have like all of the power right at their fingertips now, where they used to have to come to me and say, hey, can we do this? Now it was, hey, do this. And it's remarkable to me to see that. But I think kind of your assessment of where we're at with vibe coding is it's remarkable. I get into a lot of arguments with software developers who are anti-AI, right? Stealing our jobs, it's going to take away our ability to make a living or do whatever. I wholeheartedly disagree. But the people that are very anti-AI often say, okay, great. So you just had AI write all that code for you. Now who's going to fix it when something goes wrong? And my answer is AI. If something's broken, I'm going to have AI fix it. I'm not going to go in there and like have to dig through the code that it wrote.
Have these people never worked with human engineers?
I
If
know.
something goes wrong, you know who's going to fix it for you? Nobody, because they're going to say they're busy and they have too many tickets and they're too busy playing Minecraft at work. Like,
Right.
what is this utopia where engineers do anything for anybody ever? That's what I want to know. I want to meet them because I've spent 30 years doing all the design, doing the specs, doing the designs, getting V1 out the door. And then all the fixes and all the fast follows never actually happen. I could point you to things I built at QuickBooks and the QuickBooks ecosystem, like TurboTax and Intuit, in the 20 teens that were supposed to be fast follows, and they never got fixed. And so this whole idea that engineers actually followed through is also a fiction about human-driven development.
Right. I think we tapped into something there.
Right. So just going a little bit, I'm curious, like what you've ended up building, and I guess it sounds like you've all built a lot and are experimenting with a lot of things, but what are you building and what's been like the most useful use cases I think that you've found it for?
I'm currently working on two projects in two different modes, actually. For personal use, I'm working on what I call a digital garden, which is just a flat collection of all my knowledge, my articles, my notes in various shapes and guises. And what's really interesting is it's flat content, right? It's just markdown. So I put it in a repo, which for me was like the first time working with repos. And contrary to people who know how to code, I actually asked Claude Code to show all the code and explain to me what's happening there. So I'm now learning how to write unit tests, how to work with lint and all this stuff. So I'm kind of finally making this dream come true of, hey, I'm actually doing that one missing link of all the other stuff that I was already doing, speccing, testing, designing, and I'm actually building. And what's really cool there is I find that because the content is flat, I can build all kind of nifty stuff on top of that, like an ingestion pipeline where I read on my tablet, annotate everything by hand with my little tablet pencil, send that to Telegram, have it ingested in my digital garden, extract my notes, creating a taxonomy, triples for a knowledge graph. And all of a sudden, I've got my own research assistant on my own writing. And everything that's written in there is mine. It's my words. All the taxonomy items are mine because I review them. But Claude is doing all the structural and also the boring stuff that I don't have time for. And that is mind-blowing. It's so wonderful to work. I find it's really addictive, actually. Once you start, like right now, I've got something running in the background, like 3 Claude instances, and I'm like, oh, how is it doing? The other one is more like my regular work. I'm now a product owner of an extremely small team of 3, which means that I just don't have time for all the formal steps and all the formal handoffs. We are allowed to use Claude Code there. And all of a sudden, I find myself, rather than doing mockups and wireframes, just like you, Erika, I'm like, hey, what I'm building now directly in Claude Code is approaching production-ready software or code so much that my devs are now saying, hey, listen, if you use this library and if you use Redux and stuff, and I'm like, hey, what's Redux? Claude, tell me. You can actually make a merge request to our formal repo. And I'm like, seriously? So I got a formal upgrade to developer in the systems now.
Love that.
So yeah, and that's just chatbots basically. And then I'll hand over to someone else. My dream has come true there to build my ideal conversational AI insights dashboard. So no more spreadsheets for me, no more manual labeling and stuff. I've got a pipeline that will blow you away.
Awesome.
Love to hear it.
I like to have lots of things cooking at the same time. I can't help myself. But the thing that has been most mind-blowing to me is I built a product that builds swarms of agents from prompts. And those swarms are helping me run my business, my new business, right? 6 weeks in. So I have a personal assistant, email, calendar, Kanban. I have lead generation, which is mind blowing. It has a dashboard, so it brings me back leads, and then I can process them. And you know, there's other things too, like my content. I have a content management swarm. So, but I think what blows me away the most is, and I just posted about this, that the things that I'm building are so wildly bespoke to me and what I need and what I want in the moment. I need it and want it. To the point where I wanted to automate my emails, and I went to one of the big guys and I went on their website, and it was a whole thing. I couldn't get it working. I came back, built my own version of their tool. And then when they outreached to me, like, oh, can we help you get up and running? I said, no, thank you. I built my own version. And we've been talking about that, but to say it to a huge company that everybody knows was that moment of, wow, this is wildly real now. Yeah. And like, I spend most of my day in tools that I built doing business. And that is the real, like, crazy unlock to me.
It's so amazing, isn't it? We're almost like moving into this headless era where we just build our own interfaces on top of everything. Yeah. I've got interfaces that I just create for 15 minutes and then I chunk them away again.
I think I'm very much in the same camp where I've got 75 things going on at once. I was saying before we started the show, I've already purchased 15 domain names this year, which is for me. I probably own 20 that I've used over time, and half of them aren't in any use. But the 15 that I've purchased this year, they're all active and doing something and have a purpose, which is exclusively because of AI. I've gone a slightly different route. So I don't have my own business. But where this started was right around the Super Bowl. I was talking with some friends, and we get together for a big Super Bowl party. And there's always, I don't want to call it betting, but there's this idea of like, we're going to create a whole bunch of things and you're going to guess what's going to happen. Like how long the national anthem will be, how many planes will fly over the game. There's all of these proposition kind of bets, right? And so you just fill out a sheet and you decide who's going to win. And it's always been a very manual kind of Google Doc kind of thing that they've run over the years. And I was like, what do you guys think about me building an app that would do all that? And we could just see all the standings and all the things right in an app. And they were like, that would be amazing. And so a day later, I sent a link to them and I was like, hey, it's done. And I mean, nobody can build something. I mean, it's a small little throwaway app, right? But it was something that I could build in less than a day. And it was amazing. And I was like, oh, that was really fun. And so then the next step was I run a technology conference, software development conference called Stir Trek. Sounds a lot like maybe a movie you've heard of, but not the same. And, we have 1,500 people that come to this, and we've never, ever had an app. And I was like, wait, if I could build that, surely I could build a scheduling app that would let people create their own schedule and connect with the organizers in case something goes wrong, or we hold it in a movie theater. So if the audio or the video or something's bad, maybe you could just have an easy way to let us know. It has all these amazing features built into it. That took me a weekend. And now I have a full-blown conference app that not only can we use for my event, but like other people that have events are starting to ask me like, hey, how can we use that for ours, right? So it's maybe that turns into a business. Who knows? But then that's continued to snowball. I go to a couple of other events where we go watch the big college basketball tournament every year, or I go on a golf trip in the fall, and these are like 30 or 40 people that attend these. And there's all these games and inside jokes and bets and all these things that are manually tracked and managed in 100 places. And now they're all unified in one place on everybody's phone, just under an icon, right? So that's been the really fun personal side of vibe coding for me, is just taking these opportunities that we had all this data or information or whatever kind of strewn everywhere on a Facebook post, wherever. And now it's all just like consolidated in one place, and it's easy for the people that manage those things to just click a button and it calculates all the scores or does whatever is necessary. That has been the most fun to me. And I'll agree with Maaike. Like it feels like dopamine. Every time a new feature is done, I'm like, oh, let's do another one. Before I know it, it's 2 a.m. It happens more often than I'd like to admit.
It does feel like dopamine. I like to track my mania by Cloudflare on when I get domain renewals of all the domains I registered a year ago with all my great ideas. I'm going to say the opposite of what the lovely Anne said. I built a bunch of tools and things, but I get bored of like building those tools and things really quickly because I'm not really good at business, and there's only one subject matter which I care about, which is fiction writing for like books and TV and movies. I don't care about anything else. And so I usually am only building things or doing things not to invest in that subject matter, but because I want to be like an AI era CTO of someone else's business. And so I get tired of stuff once I learn it and then need something more difficult and bigger. And so I have some finished like AI assisted coding products. And then I have only 2 like primetime products, which is Fictioneer, which is like an AI powered novel writing or like whatever, like screenplay script writing tool that maintains the authorship with the author, but then the AI is like the editor, the muse, the memory system. Like it can do all the inference. The only thing it doesn't do is produce the product on the page. Like that's the only thing I care about. That's the only product I want to build. And then the other one is Labrador, which is a replacement for like the commercial LLM front end. So it replaces Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini. And I'm using the Claude API for it, but it has kind of a neurologically based memory retrieval system. I used like brain anatomy on how it accretes memory and can find things and learn things and adapt. And it's kind of like there's like no hallucinations, there's no forgetting, there's no such thing as a context window anymore because it's all semantic and it's all just in time, as a product feature that like the Fictioneer, the novel writing app, could use. But then Labrador is also a product of its own that has features that like aren't even in the Claude desktop app. They're not even in ChatGPT. They're not even in any of those front ends. But I don't actually want to build anything. I want to just learn the trade. And so then at some point, some company will hire me to be a CTO so that then I can write books. And so I have a really hard time sticking with anything. Like just the other day, I got on Mux and I got on Stripe and I put together like something that clones everything that Maven and Teachable does for like video courses and tracking your content and hosting your video and charging you subscriptions. Recreated that in a day. It's like, well, that's boring. I didn't learn anything. So I have to keep doing stuff that's more and more insane to even learn anything. And I'm running out of insane things to do. And so it's like, well, now I have to get into machine learning. Now I have to get into writing my own LLMs. I have to get into writing my own models because everything is so boring because you learn it in one day. And then it's like, well, that's done, because all I like to do is learn new things. And so that's where I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going to work. I don't know what my job is. I don't know who even wants me anymore because I don't fit into business. I only fit into learning and inventing. And so it's scary because that's not what makes anybody money, especially me.
Yeah.
I mean, on that note, though, on the learning note, because I want to capture that, I think a lot of us or a lot of people maybe starting or like less advanced with vibe coding and so on, might be wondering like, how do I learn? Like, it seems like all of you had gotten already so many learnings and like best practices. How did you acquire those? And do you have any recommendations for someone who's like trying to get up to speed?
Cool. It's interesting because I was just discussing this with a friend of mine this morning. Like, most of the learning that I needed to work with Claude Code effectively actually comes from experience in other fields. So, working as a business analyst, product owner, or most of all a technical writer. So knowing how to write clear instructions, but also, understanding your audience, your users. And that kind of naturally and instinctively translated into working with Claude Code, the way I use it at least. So I'm really wondering how this is for people who are, say, Gen AI native, because for me, it's very much experience-based learning. And how do you get that experience, the kind of experience you get by doing things by hand, right? Like, my main concern right now is how do I keep the AI weeds out of my work and make sure that I've got a clean, empty space? Because like Erika, I also am very kind of prone to, chasing the next big thing to learn. And for me, actually, the reverse has turned out to be way more healthier and also way more interesting. Where do I find the silence and the space to actually think, read, write, breathe? But getting back to that how do you learn to vibe code? Writing, thinking, writing out your ideas on paper first or on a screen, and getting the actual idea out of your head onto the screen. And of course, Claude can help you there. So definitely co-work with Claude. Like, hey, listen, you don't have to do this alone. Claude, please be my guide. That's how I actually started to learn how to code. Hey, listen, Claude, got 2 black screens in front of me. One of them has 3 little of these, arrows. What is this? Oh, and I'm trying to learn Python. And it's like, oh, one of them is probably your terminal. And it gave me a hello world. And that's how I started coding. And that's, of course, the big power of Gen AI, something that an engineer might not even realize. Like, when he or she explains that to me, where I'm at with my novice mental model, Claude knows how to do that seamlessly. It can completely adapt to where you are and take you from that point to wherever you want to go. So getting over that stage fright and getting that first prompt into Claude Code and say, hey, Claude, I want to build something, I don't know how. That's probably the best way to start. And then know your methods, know your methodologies, know your rules and tools of the craft that you're trying to transfer to Claude, I guess.
Yeah, I think
I have a similar one.
Oh,
go ahead, Jeff.
Go ahead.
Right. It's short. I had a similar experience where a friend of mine, a really cool designer, really smart person, we're talking about the plans. I'm like, yeah, you got, like, I have Claude Desktop, or now I have Labrador, whatever, Claude Desktop. Write the plans with me. Go back and forth like plans. I paste in these plans are something that's like 8 pages long, right? Huge. Then we paste it into Claude Code and you planning mode, shift tab 3 times. It's a planning mode. And then Claude Code writes this huge plan based on the other plan, right? And you get this other plan that it's going to execute. And I sit and read it and I'm like, yeah, that's a good choice. And I'm actually, well done. Why did you choose that? Oh, right. We want row level security on. Okay, that's because, yeah, we want the token, whatever. I'll read it. Okay. And then this friend goes, I don't read any of that shit. That's so boring. Yep. And then I realized that like another chasm that's going to occur between everybody is some people don't want to do computer science. They don't want to. It's boring. It sucks. And like the story I had, and I wrote an essay on this, is about the apprenticeship model. When I was restoring this 130-year-old colonial I live in, I had to pull out all this old electrical wiring and replace it. It was really dangerous. And I had the electrician show me. I followed him for 32 paid hours. I paid. I said, explain everything. And he said, oh, that's fine. I don't care. And we get to the point in the junction panel and we're doing this. And it's like bringing in the neutral, bringing the ground. We had to run in new grounds. I'm like, well, how does grounding work? And he's like, well, you do this, you connect it to the rod outside your house and yada, yada. And I'm like, okay, yeah, but like, you didn't explain to me like what grounding is and how it works. Like, what is equipment ground and ground to earth? Like, how does that work on like a physics level? And he looks at me and he goes, I was an electrical engineer on Navy submarines. I don't know how any of this works. What I do know how to do is hook it up to what this city code is. And I know how to make it safe. And I know how to do what the manual tells me. But if you want to know the physics of what earthing is, I don't know. They don't teach electricians that. And that's when I learned that there's a level to like what people even want to know. And so I went and learned on my own on YouTube what grounding and earthing is. And then I realized most designers, most people, they are not going to want to learn software development and computer science. It's boring, and it is boring. And so this is where there's going to be, I think, 2 tiers of AI assisted engineers, which is the people who can vibe code and use BDD to get what they want and it works. And then the people who can look at a single method or a single function and kind of get what it's doing and have fun doing it. And so now you're going to have like front stage AI engineers and backstage AI engineers who can actually tell you, like, do you want to develop this in Rust, or do you want to develop this in Python, or do you want to develop this in Clojure, and why? And then have the AI do it. And that's where it's like, if you don't care about computer science, this sucks, because you are going to hit a very hard cliff.
Yeah, I think I very much agree with that. The idea of there being 2 tiers, right? There will be people that will just do this, and there will be people that really care about getting deep into the science of it. But back to the question around, like, how do people learn? How do people go about some of this stuff? How do we learn how to do this? I see that question often. I kind of put myself out there. As I was learning, as I was going through this, I wrote a blog series called the 31 Days of Vibe Coding. And every day was just a lesson on something I'd learned or something I'd gone through. And what I realized as I was publishing all these blog posts was that people were reaching out to me and saying, how did you know how to do this? How did you know how to solve that problem? And the answer to all of those questions was always, well, after I failed 74 times, this looked like the best way to go about it. So that's why I'm saying this is the way you should do that. But there wasn't like a manual. It wasn't like I read a book on like, hey, this is how you should solve this problem. I wish there had been at the time that I wrote that, YouTube videos that would just explain everything to me. But everything's moving so fast now that by the time you create content, this 31 days, I published every day in January, and I'm already worried that a lot of the things that I wrote 4 months ago are out of date, But the answer, I think, for anybody that's watching this is, if you want to get started, if you want to do this, there's no like baseline, you need to know all of these things before you get started. The answer is just go do it. I mean, everybody's interacted with a chatbot at some point. It's just a chatbot. You can treat it that way. You can ask it for things. You can have it build you things. And you can start with like one of the desktop versions, right? Claude or Gemini or whatever. But when you want to get more advanced, you're going to find yourself jumping into something like Claude Code that has direct access to your file system and can do things and build things and throw code up to GitHub or whatever. But you'll grow into that, and you'll grow because it'll be like, hey, we need to put this code someplace, or where are we? It'll ask you, where are we deploying this? And it's like, oh, I didn't realize I had to deploy it someplace. Yeah. Jokes all the time about people sending a link to their cool new project they built, and the URL is localhost 3000, and it's like, that's not deployed, right? You need to go somewhere else. So, and it'll walk you through all of that as well. I'd never used Vercel or Supabase before, but those are now my home base for everything that I build, because it pushed me that way one time, and I was like, oh, this is actually awesome. Yeah, I'll use this again. Yep. I also think that there's an entire market for how do we make sure that companies aren't paying for the right to do that, so that the AI isn't just suggesting something because they got a check for $1 million. But that's a whole other problem.
Yeah. And in kind of elaborating on that, also make sure that you do have a basic knowledge of security and what is needed to actually deploy something to a live environment, especially now, of course, with Vercel, but also in general. Like, I mean, it's really easy to vibe code the front end, even a little bit of back end. But I think that the next big thing to learn, if you want to get really serious about this, is more on the security side and privacy, especially. And also, I think Deepika just asked a great question. What's the actual coding in vibe coding? And that's such a great question, because I think that for me, I use Claude Code for everything except actual coding. I do see the code, but I've never written a line of code in Claude Code. So yeah, it's a really, just like large language model is a bit of a misnomer, because there's not a lot of language in there. Claude Code might actually be, if you just start with it, you're like, hey, but I thought this was about coding. I don't see any code. No, that's true.
Okay, I'll build on top of that with a couple things. I have a really simple saying. It's ask the AI about the AI. And when I first got started, if you could see the sheer volume of screenshots that I would take to bring to Claude to what do I do next? What does this mean? Like my desktop would be covered in screenshots from me grabbing things to bring to Claude to get it explained to me. But for me, the real game changer has been the group of high experienced developers that I've gotten to be around. Like Erika was saying, like just I tell people I could build a career just on the crumbs of these people, and having those people just to be around, watch what they're doing, listen to them, like building that network of people who have the knowledge that you're kind of hungry for, I think is a key piece to it. But I think a lot of people are just stuck at that point of I use Claude, I don't know how to use Claude Code, and making that leap into either VS Code, whatever it is. Like I think a lot of people get stuck, like they're looking up at that mountain, and it's not a mountain; it's like an illusion. Once you get past that, you'll just go. So if my one bit of advice is, if that's where you're stuck, just reach out to me. I'll get you rolling. Find somebody to get you past that hump of confusion, fear, whatever it is, of digging into Claude Code. And then once you're in there, this is the other point. It just got very expensive to experiment. So with Claude, this whole last week, I'm seeing a lot of people post about how they hit their limits by 11 a.m. Either, spend more, be wiser, but I think spend it until you know how to maximize your token usage, just so you can get all that experimentation under your belt, because I think that's, in the end, that experimentation is what will get you where you're trying to go. But it did, I don't know if everybody else noticed how expensive it's gotten, but I'm hitting limits I never hit before this
You
past
gotta start canceling other bills. Like, why are you paying for like electricity and food? You have to get a second mortgage. I'm not
That was
kidding.
actually.
I'm not joking.
Actually, does anyone have anything else to add? Or
I mean, I'll try to go short. Right at the very start. In January. That's only as long as I've been working with Claude Code. Before that, I couldn't do it emotionally. I didn't want to make that leap. But I got into it. I learned. I'm like, okay, wow. And I tried to talk to some other designers, and I thought that they at least had like cursory exposure to like GitHub or Git or version control or anything, right? And they don't. They had no idea. And so I had made this framework for being able to download a repository structure and then vibe code what you want with Claude Code, and the repository would enforce good practices. Well, they're like, I don't know how to clone a repository. I'm like, oh, yeah. I don't know how to open a terminal. And I'm like, oh shit. And we kept going backwards and backwards and backwards. I'm like, okay, no one, like this isn't vibe code stuff. This isn't AI stuff. This isn't even software development stuff. This is like people, they've never even opened Linux ever. They don't even know what that is. I'm like, shit. So I wrote this article, one of my very first Substack, which is like the 20 things you never learned as a designer. And it was like, here's how you open a terminal. This is what PWD means. This is like CD ... goes back a directory. These people didn't use DOS. They're not olds like us. They never used DOS. And so they don't know what CD, and it's like, oh my God. So I wrote this article. That was the most popular one ever. All these people started saying, I didn't know any of this. I didn't even know what Git was or like how it worked. And so then I'm like, well, I should make a learning Wikipedia. So I made the open vector off of my zero vector manifesto, where now it has like everything you need to know step by step, from literally like, here's how you open your terminal on Windows or on Mac. And then when it says that if you're on Linux, you already know how to do all of this, and start there. And then here's how you install a package. And then it's like, here's what homebrew is. Here's what grep means. Here's what curl does. Here's all this stuff. Because there is this, let's call it, there's like this phase of learning from like the early 90s into the mid 90s of the early web, where if you don't understand how command line based computers work, if you don't understand how computers work, then you really can't get started with like AI coding outside of like Lovable or Subframe or the stuff that does it all for you. Because the moment you get an NPM error, or you have to download Flask, or you have to get whatever, and it's like type brew run npm dev : rm-rf / you're like, you don't even know what that means. And it was like the other side of the Rosetta Stone. It's like, we couldn't translate that language to designers because they have no frame of reference for what it means to navigate a POSIX-based operating system in Mac OS or like PowerShell in Windows to do the very most basic things they need to do to even start using Claude Code. And that was where I think the biggest gap is, because once you have it set up once, then Claude Code can do it all for you and it can fix those bugs. But if you can't even get to that point. So that's why I wrote that first article and then made kind of this like online free learning platform. And it doesn't talk about vibe coding at all. It talks about computer science.
Just a question. So does that mean that you're running Claude Code from the CLI? Because I'm using Claude Code in Claude Desktop and I just asked like, hey, do it. And it does it.
I'm running Claude Code in a CLI multiplexer that runs like 16 Claude Code CLIs all at once.
Yeah, I understand. But just for people who want to get started, understand that there is Claude Desktop, which doesn't require any of this. You just say to Claude, hey, what do I do?
That is true. And that's where everyone has to decide. But if someone comes to me, I'm going to tell them to go to the CLI, because their learning curve is going to accelerate so fast that everything outside of bare metal CLI is going to slow them down in a matter of days. And this is where Claude Desktop is just running the CLI with a GUI wrapper.
Yeah.
And so the closer people get to not being dependent on any product or any vendor, that's what's going to make them the most empowered. And so, yeah, it's all like raw CLI. I don't see... It doesn't speed you up. All it does is make it feel faster, because it's not having you learn anything beyond what your current level of knowledge is. That's why like you have to push yourself past what you're already knowing and what you're already doing.
Got it. And there are things that the CLI... that's enough food for another conversation. Just wanted to point out, if you want to get started with Claude Code, there's an easy way to kind of ease into it, right? And you can even ask Claude Code Desktop to explain CLI. And take it from there.
I don't disagree, but I just teach one specific angle.
Yeah,
you're a tough love, Erika. Erika's the school of tough love, and I don't disagree either. I think it depends on you. It depends on how you learn. How for me, I'm like, why? But why? Everything, but why? Like, if I don't like Erika, if I had the electrician at the house, I would be asking those same deep questions, because that's how I learn. So I think a lot of it comes down to how you learn and how your comfort zone, but also being around people that will push you outside of your comfort zone so you can.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And what's interesting in that respect is I find that I actually use Claude Code for everything, not just for coding. And that opens up a whole new world of thinking you're kind of limited by what you've got available around you. And then all of a sudden realizing that, hey, I don't necessarily need to build programs or apps with Claude Code to use it. Like Anne, I'm also running my own business, and the amount of little, day-to-day skills that I've got running in Claude Code, because it's just a way more structured approach to life and kind of organizing my ever kind of, conversational brains over there. So just having a more structured working environment at your disposal, like that you can use at will, not even just to code, but just to work, is pretty amazing, I find.
I think there's another thing. I want to be super fair, because what you said was like, Mike, it was like really relevant. I think it also is like, what does somebody want to be and what do they want to do? Like, I've talked to some attorneys that are like, I want to build all this AI stuff. And after I talk to them for a while, I'm like, why? Just don't do any of this. Hire someone like me to do this. Why? You should be doing attorney stuff. You should not be trying to be a CTO. Like, I want to be a CTO. I don't care about any product. I will build any product. I don't care. And I don't want to, and so it's like, I don't want to be an attorney. I don't want to be someone who's doing it for medical research. I don't want to be anything. And so using the AI tools, I want to use the AI tools to develop software using AI for AI. And that's the job and the pursuit, whereas some people are like, well, I want to use it to be a better recruiter, or I want to use it to be a better air traffic controller, or I want to use it to be a better soldier, which are all using AI as assistive to some other higher order goal, where I'm like, no, using it is the goal. I'm just a mechanic. I make engines and I put engines in things. I don't drive them. I don't own them. I don't use them. I just build engines and I put them in other people's race cars. That is it. I don't even know how to drive.
So just building on what we're talking about, I think we've touched on it a lot, but just tooling. I'm curious, it sounds like all of you are using Claude Code in some form or another. Is there anything else that you're using? And also we have a question. What do you typically spend per month on AI tools, and why is it so expensive?
Too much.
What is your setup?
This was actually a question I was going to ask the panel, because I saw that we were all Claude users.
Yeah.
Claude Max.
So-
Yeah.
Max, yeah.
I'm paying $100 a month for Claude, and I probably would pay $200 if I needed to. I haven't hit the limits to suggest that yet. But when I think of the value that I'm getting out of that $100, it's an easy expense.
Same.
Easy expense.
I love when Claude tells me, you know, Anne, this thing you're asking me to do would take 10 developers 12 months. And then I feel like I'm getting a bargain
That's great.
at the end of the month.
Yeah, and the thing is, I actually canceled a lot of other AI subscriptions that I have running, like OpenAI. I don't subscribe to ChatGPT anymore. I had like a few AI builder licenses for other stuff. And also I find that with, I don't want to sound too much like a fangirl, but honestly, since Claude Code, I think I actually found proper use cases that are saving me time and money. As opposed to just, having fun with ChatGPT, prompting some images and having fun looking at Dutch women in gigantic cloaks and stuff like that. So I've definitely passed that era, and I do find that I get proper business value out of it. Also because I actively scout for these use cases. So every time I build something, I first ask myself, okay, jobs to be done and business model canvas, like, hey, what's my pain point here? What am I trying to solve? Right now, I'm trying to solve the fact that every 3 months I have to submit my tax reports to the Dutch tax authority. And I did actually manage to save some time on that using Claude. So yeah, it's cool.
I do
Also,
think the conversation.
Sorry, go ahead, Anne.
No, it's a subject change, but I think it's relevant. I think I personally am starting to dip my toe into learning hardware and running local, because
same here.
The amount of money that the expense, what happened with Claude over the last couple of weeks, and the difference in tokens, I think it scares me in the sense of people without money. Like there might be a class divide because of all this, and there's like social negative social impacts of AI being very expensive. And it just made me want to start experimenting on how do we do this on a budget, because I want everybody to have this power. Like I said, I just started to dip my toe in. I'm going to do a little class with one of my friends who is actually an expert. His name is Dragon. I tell him all the time, I grew up wanting a dragon, and I never thought it would end up being a developer from Serbia. But he and I are going to because hardware is integral piece to running locally, and I don't get it, and I'm sure there are other people who don't get it, and I think that might be something like a branch of all this stuff where a lot of people are heading towards now.
Yeah, I think you make a good point, right? I mean, when the internet came around, people with money were the ones that had access to the internet, and I think that started to create a divide. Mobile phones the same way, right? There are so many companies that are like, oh, we're just going to build an app. And it's like, okay, but what about all the people that don't have a cell phone or don't have a cell phone that runs the apps that you're building? How are they going to get access to this stuff? And if it's some exclusive, private thing, I suppose that's fine. But for anything that's meant to be general consumption, you're eliminating a lot of people that you don't realize go to the library to get access to the internet still. And I think that's a big miss in all of this stuff, which is, I think it's nice that there are things like Claude and Gemini and Grok and the others that people can still use for free, because at least they're getting to dip their toe. But I agree. I think that those of us that have the advantage of being able to throw $100 a month at an AI service, it's a huge advantage.
$100. This is like, I mean, I'm sorry, everybody. I'm talking too much. I'm not a vibe coder. But I mean,
Go ahead.
I pay for pro plans. I pay the $200 for Claude Code. And then I have a pay as you go OpenAI API for doing embeddings and stuff. And then I have pro plans across Supabase, Netlify, Railway, GitHub, and then, I mean, so many others. And I added it up. I mean, right now it's probably like $800 or $900 just to pay like infrastructure costs, like a bill. And so then the math on that is, well, it has to make some money at some point. And so far it's made enough to be, more than that, right? But that runs out quick. I mean, $800-900 a month is going to go to, $1,000 a month, and it's going to keep going. So at some point there needs to be paid products or consulting or some sort of income to support it, because I'm treating it like a side business. I'm treating it like, like small, like solopreneur, just running it as a business. And that's the other, I don't know, kind of unfairness like we were talking about, which is at some point, this is really all meant to be more about being commercialized for small, medium, and large size business, and not the hobbyist person, where it's going to be tools like Lovable, where you can just pay $20 a month or whatever, and they do the hosting and deployment and everything, will be a better deal than spending $1,000 a month to go into the hole trying to run your entire own infrastructure, unless you have a good reason to then like monetize that as a business expense later. But then the economy of like $200 a month for Claude Code, my calculations right now is that Claude Code replaces $43,000 a month in developer payroll for $200.
Yeah.
And so I would pay $2,000 for Claude Code. I would pay as much as was needed, and then pivot away from having a day job, because then you are empowered to be your own day job. And it's always in favor of the person doing it, but then you have to do all the other stuff that it takes to run a technology company. And then we're back to, most people don't want to do that, period. It doesn't matter how easy it is. They come to me and say, I want an app that will deliver dog food with robots. And it's like, okay, we do it. And then they pay me, and then they go and they run their dog food business. And that's, I know that's like another new weird cottage industry of independent infrastructure people, like maybe me and Anne, who will make other people's dreams come true, because at the end of the day, they don't want to do any of this. They want to go and do the thing they're passionate about.
We have, well, we touched on this a little bit, but there's one question. I know there are a couple other questions in the chat, but we can get to them async. We kind of talked about them earlier. But I see security as the biggest risk, especially vibe coders, NPM supply chain, Docker containers tainted, et cetera, that go undetected in this current world. Would love to hear what opinions are here and thoughts for remedying.
You just let Mythos handle it. Don't worry about it. I'm just
they'll leak Mythos soon enough.
Yeah.
With this one, I want to do a quick answer on this. This is where I'm very much like need to own up to it. Like, I worked in gigantic enterprise mission critical organizations. I mean, Intuit at the time was, makers of TurboTax, had everyone's, personal financial information. NASA, we had national security secrets. We had military secrets. We were getting cyber attacks from every single foreign government on the planet wanted to get into NASA systems. And so I understand that, like, oh, shoot, I really better be running penetration tests and security tests and audits, and the code, there's automated skills that go through, and it's like, find every major attack vector on these different languages and stacks in my approach, and go and research every single possible thing, and run those like every couple of days on the repository to find the gaps and exploits in 0 days. But that is because, again, I literally worked in cybersecurity. I worked for the United States federal government space program as an IT specialist, and most people haven't. And so it's my job to help people understand what to look for and how to secure it, and how to make it as secure as TurboTax was with your tax data, how QuickBooks was secure with your business data. And that again is in the education gap, to where you can tell your average vibe coder, like, hey, here's some skills you can run. Here's how you even understand what could be exposed and what you need to do about it. And those are like the unknown unknowns, where people won't even know to go and run penetration tests, or have a black hat agent that will go, or a red team agent that will go and attack your other agents and attack your code and produce reports. They're like, I don't know what a red team is. Well, that's why I need to tell you,
Right.
because I want to help people understand the stuff that I did by suffering through, living through the 1990s and early 2000s as a software developer's designer.
Yeah. I was just going to add on to this. I think that's one of the things that I found has been really handy with Claude Code specifically, but I'm sure this is true of most tools, is that there's always another layer to ask a question. So, I build a thing and I'm like, hey, how do we build this in a secure way? And it gives me some solutions and write some code. And then I'll take a step back and say, okay, but are we actually secure? What are our attack vectors? What are the things that might be concerns for me? I'm not a security guy. I mean, I've built plenty of software and I've had a security team that worked with me, but it's not my core practice. And what I find is that it'll give me an answer every time. Oh, here's something we should look at. Here's something we should fix. But when I don't know something, one of the things that I will often ask is, how do we think about our software? What is it that we should be thinking about next? I don't have a prompt for it. I don't have it. I'm not asking it to think about something specific. Instead, I'm saying, what am I missing? If you look at my code base, what are some things that I should be thinking about that I'm not right now? And I find that I can continue to just ladder up that layer, and it continues to add.
Yeah, well, just what I find really interesting there is, and I think that goes for all four of us, is that we know what to ask, and we also know that we realize that there's things that we don't know.
Yes.
And I think that for an average vibe coder, this already is like way over their heads. They're not even realizing that there might be security risks out there. So I think rather than teaching people, of course they should know about security, but I think it's even more important to realize, hey, what should you use vibe coding for, and what specifically you shouldn't use it for.
Mm-hmm.
So that perhaps these environments also come with a little bit of a disclaimer. Hey, listen, you can do serious harm if you build something here and you don't know what you're doing. So kind of getting some guardrails in, or some triage when you start working with Claude Code, for instance, like, hey, what type of user are you? Oh, then this might, for instance, people who've never coded a single line of code in their lives, they might actually have to start out with Claude Desktop rather than on the CLI. So I think that the biggest risk there is just in the complete, directionless, headless way this kind of new method is offered to people. And that it's actually up to designers to kind of think of a way, how can we make sure that the onboarding to this kind of applications is safe and teaches people some stuff before they even start. And that's what I find so interesting, is that most of the Gen AI stuff that's out there, of course, comes from a tech first perspective. It's literally like the big tech bros. But where's the designers in this layer? So where are we taking responsibility, for instance, also for the fact that conversational interfaces are known to increase trust, even when that's not warranted? How do we make sure that Claude Code is staying out of that whole conversational weeds and starts talking about, oh, I'll put my hands behind my back. You don't have hands, you don't have a back. Stay out of my world and I'll stay out of yours. So a clear division of roles and tasks might be something that might help a lot of people there.
Just to build on that, I'm about to start selling Agent Modus, the tool, the prompt to agent, prompt to swarm tool that I built. And in one simple sentence, I'm paying an expert because I'm not playing when it comes to security. So but if you're not going to sell it, do you have to worry as much, right? Why, if you're not going to try and sell this thing, don't pay the $200 an hour for the security expert to make sure everything is safe. Maybe at least that's my feeling. I don't know. But because I want to sell this and I don't want to be liable for security issues, I'm bringing in an expert and learning from him at the same time. And that's just me. I don't want to take the risk because I'm trying to sell this thing. But just to what Maaike was saying, Maaike, it's so funny. I'm starting a series of talks called Your AI Product Sucks Because You Don't Know UX, because it's happening everywhere. Like people are launching stuff and it's, you know, the designer is dead. People need to get in touch with the fact that a lot of this stuff is getting put out there with no, like, we should be having these magical experiences by now, and we're really not. And I think the reason why we're not is because UX is not even a factor in a lot of these people who are just whipping things up over the weekend. So sorry, that was two subjects, but I had to build on what she was saying because it's so relevant.
No, I agree with both your points, though. If it's important, if you're building a product, you need real human assurance that this is actually good, right? I mean, there's so much about AI that we can't necessarily trust the response for. But I'm with you. I feel like there's going to be this big dip in UI experience because there's a lot of people that resented having to use a designer or were never willing to think about design themselves. And now they have all this power at their fingertips and they think that they, like, look at the great interface it built for me, when in fact it's garbage.
Oh, yeah. I know we're at time, so I think just to close out, does anyone have any last thoughts or any advice for people that are looking to get into vibe coding or are already in it?
My really fast advice for everybody, Nike already stole it, but it's just do it. Like you have to go try this stuff. There's no amount of learning you can do ahead of time. You just need to crack it open and go.
Okay. If I can add to that, keep thinking.
Yeah.
Mine is the one thing that I've seen block most people is they want to learn and they want to experiment, but they don't have a real idea. And so they're like, I'm going to make a chess playing app, but the pieces are all Pokemon. It's like, well, that's cool, but you're going to run out of motivation because that's not a real business. It doesn't have real problems. It doesn't have real users. There's not real pain points. There's no jobs to be done. And so if you want to like really understand what AI is going to do to change how we make things, at least pick something that is a real idea with real customers, because it will let you figure out like, okay, you vibe code something and it's awesome. How are you going to like do like testing with people? How are you going to do support? How are you going to look for bugs or feature enhancements? Because no one wants, okay, the chess playing Pokemon app, that would be pretty cool. But like other stuff, you would never know like what to do next. And so I see people burn out really fast because they do something that is really fun and they do this crazy stuff and they're using OpenGL shaders and they're using AI and it's going whatever. It's like, but all you did was learn how to fiddle with some of the toys versus I have an agent whose only job is to go through and calculate costs of features and how much you would need to charge a month based on how much AI it would use. So like my book writing, editing, like Muse fiction writing app, I'm like, okay, I need to like understand like what would it cost for a power user who's trying to write novels, 2 novels a year. And it says, well, based on the token usage and the functions, you need to charge about $15 a month, but that's just break even. That's letting me do things that a toy would never let me do. And so I just tell everybody, do at least a real idea once you've done a few toys, because otherwise you'll never get into the actual stake of being a stakeholder.
I'll round that off.
Yep.
Did everybody else go?
Yep.
Okay, I'll round that off with, if it makes you uncomfortable, run towards it. That's the old kind of saying. For me, it's like, if in this realm, when you're talking about vibe coding and AI, if it makes you uncomfortable, go research it. Go ask the AI about it. All those things that are keeping you stuck, the answers are at your fingertips. Just go ask the questions and get comfortable and then run towards it if that's what you need to do.
Thank you so much, everyone. Yeah, this has been amazing and so much great information and lots of things that people can actually take away. So thank you all for being here and stay tuned for more panels.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.